And we are live. Hello, hello. Welcome to Red Hoop Talk. This is Roy, and I have the beautiful and did up
Shannon. Hey, Roy. Thanks for noticing. Hey, the guy noticed I did my hair. That's pretty cool.
We all took showers today here on quarantine land.
I don't know about that, but anyway.
I was telling you, I put cologne on. I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulty too. For some reason, my computer's flashing in and out, but we should be all right. Well, we got another cool one today. We've got a guest, and we're not just sitting here talking by ourselves. But let's go ahead and take care of some housekeeping stuff.
Some housekeeping stuff. Let's first recognize the place where we stand as an expression of gratitude and appreciation for those whose territory that we are
occupying.
Occupying. Thank you. Let's get in the mood here. I'm in Maryland, and Maryland. Thank you. Maryland is the home territory of Piscataway and Kansai Piscataway nations. Roy, do you remember where you're at?
Yeah, I'm here in Southern California, and the people that we recognize as the Chumash people, and that's a place where we stand.
All right.
There's many other tribes here, but
many other don't forget Tongva.
And the Tongvas. Yes.
The Tongva. Lusueño, I think, is in your neck of the woods.
Yep.
Yeah. So there is a great resource. If you're not sure whose land you're standing on, there's a great resource we'll have down below on our YouTube site. It's from a Canadian organization. Should I just go ahead and pull it up, Roy? Or
yeah, you got it right there.
Just about. Let's see if I can get it up real quick. We talked about it a little bit last week, and it was really, what is my computer doing? Now Support Assist is popping up. This is going to be one of those shows, isn't it?
Yeah, something's going on because I'm having lots of trouble with my computer's doing this weird flashy thing. It's never done that before. I don't know what that's all about.
Well, we'll make it through and hope all the computer spirits will be with us today. I'm going to share my screen that right now, if you want to pop that up, Roy.
Okay, hold on one second here. I'm trying to get back. I'm having trouble too.
Okay.
All right, there you go.
Yeah, so this is nativeland.ca territory acknowledgement. And what you can do is you can actually enter your place. So we're going to have our guest is originally from North Dakota, but is living in Minnesota right now. So let's put in Minnesota and see who's all in Minnesota. So the original territory of the Mdewakanton. No, I didn't pronounce that right.
Mdewakanton.
Thank you, Roy. I knew you'd get it right.
That's where our elders from.
Exactly. Us Okies who can't pronounce long words usually say things like Sioux. And I think there's some rednecks that use the term Sioux as well, but there are different bands of Sioux, and I'm just not Indian enough to say these very well. So I'll leave it to our guest to talk more about whose land she's standing on and the things she wants to talk about. So I'm going to stop sharing that. And where do you want to go, Roy?
Well, I mean, shouldn't we just go ahead and bring our guest on and get started with her and not waste everybody's time with us just gib-gabbing about nothing?
Well, let's. I was hoping we'd talk about COVID just a little bit.
Okay, let's do a little update and we can show the little video.
Yeah, there's this great video that Illuminative has put out. It's a public service announcement, and they're allowing us to share it on our show today. I think, Roy, you want to just go ahead and bring that up and play it for everybody?
Yeah, hold on a second here. I'm going to cut our mic
The whole world has been impacted by COVID-19.
Native communities are being hit especially hard.
But here are some of the most famous Native Americans we could find. You probably haven't heard of any of them.
So we added celebrities.
Maybe you'll listen to them. Let's go, then.
There are a lot of unknowns.
But our ways can help us beat COVID-19.
In times of need.
We always come together.
When we dance.
When we sing.
When we pray.
But now it's time to stay away.
I mean, we're going to be coming together by staying away from each other.
We're going to be staying away from each other. We're coming together at the same time by staying away from each other.
I'm washing my hands.
I'm not washing my dishes that much, but I'm washing my hands.
I ain't hanging out with no one.
No one, not even him.
Except them. But they're my kids. I have to.
No matter how lonely I get.
I ain't inviting anyone over.
Listen to the experts.
Not my auntie's boyfriend's kid's uncle.
Though I'm sure he's a nice guy. He borrowed me $20 at one time.
If you're feeling ill, seek help immediately.
This virus works quickly.
Especially among our elders and our most vulnerable.
I am staying inside.
I am eating my veggies.
Don't go over to your snag's house either.
What's a snag?
No, Mom, you can't go to Pico. They canceled it.
I know that even if I feel okay,
I can spread it to people I love.
And the people you don't love. Like your exes.
But I am going to pray
That you all wash your hands. I am going to hope.
That you stay the heck away from each other.
Stay 6 feet away from me.
I am protecting the elders by staying away from them.
And I know that even if I feel okay, I could still be spreading it to somebody that I love.
I'm going to be a good nephew.
I'm going to be a good niece.
A good parent.
A good grandson.
A good relative.
A good auntie.
I'm going to be a good example. Keep your flat Indian butt home.
Help slow the spread of the coronavirus.
Listen up, or I'm not sewing y'all any more moccasins. Do it for your grandma. Do it for my grandma.
Decolonize Corona.
I don't know if that's how decolonization works.
That's what they want you to think.
You know what? Never mind. Yes, let's decolonize coronavirus.
Oh.
We can defeat this.
So stay away from each other. But together.
Stay away together.
Stay away together.
Until then, we'll see you at the next dance, cousin.
Ooh.
Love it. That's the best PSA I've heard.
Wait, you're messing up. Let me listen. Okay.
Roy's got to hear some drumming and some singing.
Oh man, it's powwow season and we got nothing right now. It's killing me. It's killing me. The virtual powwow is not doing it for me.
Just get in your backyard, man. Haven't you seen the powwow online on
Zoom powwows?
Yeah. It's awesome. It's cool. Really amazing how people have come together in that way, and it's brought some famous names, some famous Indian names to I think it was Saturday or Sunday when there was a big online powwow. It's been really great to see that and watch, but it's not the same as being there. It's just not the same as being there and having someone else make some fry bread for me. But COVID, we're still in the midst of it. I don't know what's going on with some of these states. They're wanting to open back up because of economic reasons. Navajo cases are still growing. There's 2,000 cases now. Last week they were at 1,360 when we had our show last week, and 71 deaths now from 52 that we reported last week. And there's still other tribes out there that are suffering, and we have no idea what their data is. Navajo is a very outspoken nation that has capacity, that has strong health care compared to other nations. And so we don't really know what's going on in Indian country. There was a great article in the Atlantic. Let's see if I can bring it up real quick. If you get a chance to read it, Roy, I don't know if you got a chance to read it, but I've got it up there now. If you could share it, it's called "Disease Has Never Been Just Disease for Native Americans," and it talks about the history of of illness and pandemics in Indian country, and that most science likes to look at it as if it's an accident. Oh, well, tribes just weren't immune, and smallpox hit them, and it was just some terrible accident. But really, when you look at history and you look at when the different epidemics and pandemics went through Indian country, it had to do with oppressive policies. It had to do with war. Disease that has occurred in Indian country has not been accidents, nor is COVID an accident.
Did you need that screen up?
Yeah, it's up. Do you see it?
No, I don't. I didn't put it up yet. I'm sorry.
Roy.
There you go.
I am being all dramatic.
I've got some real bad issues going on here with my audio and everything.
Okay. You're just strobing. You're having the disco strobe effect. So, but I'm hearing you and I'm seeing you.
Okay. And hey, quick shout out to we got a couple people in the chat room. We got somebody from Colorado and somebody from Texas in the chat room saying hi to.
Halito. It sounds like we have a Choctaw there saying hello. But this is a really good article by The Atlantic, and it talks about historical epidemics and what COVID means to us today. So if you get a chance, give it a read. It's a little bit of a long read, but it's a good one, especially if you like a little bit of history with your reading. Did you hear anything about any good news this week, Roy, or anything going on in your neck of the woods?
No, nothing going on here other than, just locally, things are starting to get weird as far as easing up and people are out in the streets. But I think it's a small group of people, because I'm seeing like all in the chats and everywhere, everybody's saying stay home, and then like the PSA says stay home. But I know some people are getting antsy and some people are going back out there. But I think it's just too risky to start thinking about going back out there now. We're just getting over the hump of this thing, and now everybody's all anxious to get back to it,
Yeah.
And the places that are more vulnerable, like we said, in Indian country, there's so many vulnerable places. It's going to make it even worse for them if we don't, continue to do what we're doing, which is just to isolate and until we can get a handle on this thing, at least so we can start testing people and we can start getting some type of a what do they call it? What's the immunization or whatever?
Lysol?
Yeah, that's
Bleach?
it.
What? Light bulbs? What?
We caught some flack for telling everybody that they were going to try and put light bulbs up people's asses to make the virus go away. I did.
Oh, did you? Well, that was just your wife, right?
No.
By the way, everybody, I love Roy's wife. She is beautiful, but she is blonde. She is so blonde. Beautiful, but she's blonde. I love you, Stacy. I was trying to find something funny because I feel like there's just so much news, and if we start getting into Indian 101 and issues with the Indian Child Welfare Act that we may be talking about today, that we're just going to be depressed. So I was thinking that I would show a little movie trailer. You think it's a good time to show that now, or do you think we should wait until things get depressing?
No, you got a movie trailer you wanted to show?
Yes.
Let's throw it up there real quick.
It is awesome. Let me see.
Jackie's going to be getting
bored. You think she's getting antsy over there?
She might be.
Don't get antsy yet. Wait until you see this trailer. Oh yeah. Can you put it up?
Yeah, there it is.
All right, here we go.
Did you push the sound?
Oh crap. No, hold on. All right, hold on. We're still, hey, everybody, we're still kind of new with Stream. We're using StreamYard. And it's just a little bit, you just got to push a couple of buttons, but we always forget to push the couple of buttons.
Yep. Ready?
Yes, ready, go.
There you go. You might need to turn it up a little.
I don't know how to turn it up.
So how long were you out there for?
I lost track of the time.
Did you get bit?
This planet we're on is so sick of our shit. That's why the dead keep coming back to life.
You're immune. I'm not. What if my baby isn't either?
Run!
It's bad.
Ninakasi.
I heard that you can cure bites here.
Ain't nobody immune here but us.
One of them could come in here and infect this entire camp.
Behind you.
You want to live?
Who says we're immune? Badukja uksid hummo. Awenda sui lixico.
Blood quantum. Isn't that awesome?
Is that out yet?
Oh, Jackie's coming in.
Oh, there she is.
That looks so freaking scary. Like, I don't know, but it looks good.
Hey, Jackie's already throwing you right up there like that. I went to dump the other one and we pulled you in, so we may as well bring you
And
up.
I was like going like this, and then all of a sudden I'm on the screen. I'm trying to look proper. My son was telling me about that movie last night, or that show last night, and he's like, "But mom, it's scary." But mom, it's scary.
It looks like it is
Right?
like hilarious and exactly what we need to be watching right now.
Yeah.
And the Indians are immune from zombies. It's great. It
Was
looks
that Gary Farmer in there, or no? I couldn't see.
I don't think it was, but I
Okay.
was looking for when, like, are they
Yeah.
gonna like somehow release it streaming or
It is
something?
streaming. It is streaming,
it?
and I forget what my son said. It was which one? Shut. Well, I don't know. I'm not keeping up on technology, but it is streaming.
Okay. Well, we'll have to figure that out by next week and make sure everybody knows, or if anybody knows, comment and let us know. Do some research while you're watching us and tell us where we can see it, because I'd really like to watch that.
Blood Quantum, right? That was the name of it. Blood Quantum.
Yep.
Quantum. It's awesome.
I
Yeah.
think I fixed my computer.
Yeah, you're not shaking anymore.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we got it. I think we got it.
That's just Roy. Roy had a little
I
shake.
shake.
So Jackie,
Did you get to introduce Jackie? And so our transition was horrible. We screwed up once again. It's
you
like,
didn't get to introduce her at all.
I know. I'm
Roy.
glad I wasn't picking my nose and like looking off, because all of a sudden I saw myself. But here I am. This is good.
Yeah, we do have to give our guests a little bit of warning.
and at least announce who they are and and talk them up a little bit, you know.
Well, yeah.
Well, let's do it in front of her face then. So everyone, please welcome our wonderful friend, Jackie Crowshoe. She's a member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa, but is living in, are you in Minneapolis?
Yep, close to it.
Close to Minneapolis,
Yeah.
St. Paul, one of those, the beautiful Twin Cities, and has been working in Indian child welfare matters for quite a long time. And you've got a kind of a long history that got you into that that field, and then you're doing some great work with the Capacity Building Center for Tribes, and we can bring stuff up, whatever you'd like, but I'd really like you to talk a little bit more about who you are and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah. Well, I thank you. Thank you, Shannon. I absolutely fell in love with Shannon in Alaska at actually an ICWA conference. And she was speaking and I was raising my hand and asking questions over and over again. And
yes, I think you were giving me shit, Jackie.
Maybe.
I think you were like, who is this?
I've been known for that. I've been known for that, but it's all good. It's all good. But yeah, so thank you, Shannon. I also want to just say thank you for that shared healing you did earlier, for the leaders and for us to pause and take a moment, and I think one of these, this has really taught us all to slow down and, listen to what our elders are telling us to do and making our tobacco ties and drinking our teas and, making our bare root teas and our sage teas and our cedar teas and, and pausing, what else are we doing right now? But we need to just pause. So I've really appreciated that. And I appreciated you taking that time out and kind of giving us that forum earlier today with the leaders and pausing. And they are doing so much right now and trying to manage, so many different tasks as we all are. So, I appreciate that.
Yeah, even against their own health. I know that there are some tribal leaders out there, they've got to go into work. They've got to go in and have meetings. They don't have any other a way to meet and make decisions except to see each other in person. And that's just what they're doing.
Yeah. So that's, I just wanted to make sure and acknowledge and tell you, thank you for that. And also, meeting Roy and being on here. This is fun. I mean, I always look for ways that we can get together in Indian country and share stories and, help us to know we're not alone. And, I know that sometimes those of us that might be working with larger systems, we really need to connect. And, I kind of felt like that PSA was somewhat how my mind goes. On one hand, I'm laughing hysterically, finding humor. And then the next minute I'm anxious and I'm crying and worried. And then the next minute I'm making jokes. So I could really relate to that PSA. But so just to back up, yep, I am from Turtle Mountain in North Dakota. And that's right close to the Winnipeg. And we, during the Relocation Act in the 50s, I'm not that old, but in 1968 is actually when we made our way during that relocation time into the city. So in 1968, we came to Minnesota. And again, you did a land acknowledgement. I appreciate that. So here in Minnesota, we have the 4 Dakota tribes. And the Midwakaton is one of them that I kind of had to chuckle when I heard you say that, because, that is a tough one.
I was not prepared. I apologize.
Yeah.
We have family there, so.
Yeah, so it's the Midwakaton. And then there are 3 other Dakota tribes here, Lower Sioux, Upper Sioux, and then we have Prairie Island. So those are the 4, and they are in the southern part of Minnesota. And then in the northern part, we have the 7 Ojibwe tribes, and I won't name all of them, but that is whose land we are on, Minnesota. So I appreciate you guys doing that. I've noticed more and more people doing that, and it's a good thing.
And it's great. There's other countries that's like in Australia.
Yeah.
The government of Australia acknowledges it and does a territory acknowledgement with every public meeting. We haven't got the United States to do that yet, but there are other countries and other indigenous places that have made that part of their regular honoring. Instead of, mascots and things like that.
Yeah. So I've been back and forth, though. I think like a lot of us who were part of the relocation and Minneapolis is one of the larger urban Indian populations. So, we have, just a hodgepodge of natives here, which is kind of cool. And then many of us just have constantly gone back and forth. Some, just back to the res living, come back to the cities, back to the res. And that was really our story. We went back probably, 8 years later and lived on the res for a while, and then again back to the cities. So yeah, similar story, I think, to a lot of natives out there. a big part of, I had initially gone to college for nursing. In fact, I was so close to being an RN, and I remember being in a course, we were doing clinicals. And it was a man's IV had infiltrated, and I only had 2 courses left to finish for a registered nurse. But this is what happened, and I'll never forget it. And it was like it happened yesterday. His IV got infiltrated, so I had to go in and discontinue it. And I get in there, and his arms, like swelling up with fluid because it came out. And and the look on his face, and he was an older man, and he was just sheer panic. And I could sense immediately, like, this man he's scared. And so I, discontinued it. But I found myself really engaging in that, like, that therapeutic communication part of nursing that really there wasn't as much time for. You were in there to do your clinicals and distribute the meds and back up doctors and do your SOAP notes and your DART notes. So I ended up switching to social work because I wanted that closeness, that therapeutic relationship with people. I felt such a connection to. So I ended up working in a lot of the nonprofits after that and doing, I worked in domestic violence shelters, wrote orders for protection, and worked in a sexual abuse program. And also much of my work, after school was in Indian country. It was only in Indian country. I absolutely found, and especially, so back up, like, so my story out there, going back and forth to the res, parents divorced, and just, there was a lot of trauma going through those younger teenage years, having been a rape victim twice, witnessing some severe violence, it really, and then also not really knowing who to go to, who to talk to in those young years. And it was something that, came out later, but I think I also was able to, when working in the field of violence or working in the sexual abuse field, like, there was this fire in me that was extremely passionate for my Indigenous sisters and families and children and protecting them. And, and it was extremely important to me. Anybody that worked with me knew that I was a fireball, and, that I advocated strongly for the families that I worked with. And then that just came to a point where, I knew there was a federal law that protected our children and our families that wasn't being followed. So that's kind of what led me down the path from nonprofit Indian organizations in Minneapolis to, working more specifically with ICWA. And I was the director at the Minneapolis American Indian Center, the ICWA director for a while there. So that's kind of where the ICWA comes in. But I think just sharing that part of me is something I think a lot of my Indigenous sisters relate to. It's many of our stories.
Not to jump in, Jackie, but could you just explain to everybody what ICWA is?
Yeah, so the Indian Child Welfare Act was passed in 1973, Shannon? Eight. So, and again, this was I'm having is it like a deja vu? Like, I feel like,
what?
I'm having a hot flash too, but I feel like all of a sudden, I've been here, I've done this before. But so in 1978, Roy, is when the Indian Child Welfare Act was passed, federal legislation to protect Native families because of the alarming rates of removal. And let me just share with you, and with permission, of course, that, my husband and his twin, were a part of those removals. They come from Canada. So again, very personal to me, making sure that we're following these laws to protect our children. So it was passed in 1978, and it's really, what are we at, 2020, and we're barely getting compliance with that federal law.
Right.
So I spent a lot of years, in state government. I worked in tribal government, trying to get folks to comply with the Indian Child Welfare Act.
Did you work on tribal state agreements to that effect?
Yeah. Yeah. So Minnesota, so there's a few states that have higher standards, and the way the Indian Child Welfare Act was written, you have permission as a state to create higher standards than the federal law language itself. So Minnesota happens to be a state that has higher standards written. They call it the Minnesota Indian Family Preservation Act.
Right.
And then out of that also came a tribal state agreement between the 11 tribes in the state of Minnesota. I happened to be at the department at that time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and it's, you know, there's some pushback, but always has been. Minnesota has probably the worst disparities, I'm sure, in the country. Still, I think American Indian children are, I want to say the last time I heard was like 19 times more likely to enter out-of-home placement than a white child. So there's still more work. The beautiful thing is I've got a lot of Indigenous sisters and brothers now working for the department, hoping to keep, you know, getting some compliance and with ICWA. So
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the association, and I don't know how much you know about this, but in the 60s, my predecessors were up at Spirit Lake. And a woman came to them and said, they took my children. And so the gentleman who was there representing the association was an attorney, and he started investigating what had happened with her children, and then started uncovering this web of women and families whose children had been removed by state officials. And then it wasn't just there, it was all over Indian country. And so those initial studies in 69 and 74, which kind of found that a quarter of our children had gone to white families, which is just part of the historic policy to assimilate and to remove children from their culture, their language, and also that whole idea that Indian families are somehow inferior.
Right.
And I can't imagine, growing up, you grew up in Minnesota?
Well, back and forth. Yeah, on the res, off the res, on the res, off the res. Yeah.
So what was it like for you going, being able to be urban and res? I mean,
yeah, I definitely, it was a challenge. You hear that a lot, right? From natives, they're like, yeah, I fit in here and didn't fit in here. I was, seen this way here. Because a lot of my cousins would tease me, that I was just an urban Indian. You're not a real Indian, you're an urban Indian. When clearly we have the same, family, both of my parents are actually Turtle Mountain Ojibways, Turtle Mountain Chippewas, and both of them born and raised, on the res in Belcourt, North Dakota. So, I'm Turtle Mountain through and through. So yeah, it was, I loved it. I mean, I have beautiful, beautiful memories on the res, but I also have some, tragedies that have happened. But similarly with the urban, in the city living, I mean, it's different experiences, but I will say that I have always had that sense of belonging and kind of knowing who I am. And I remember when I was a little girl, I was going in a white school, and my dad saying, I'd said to my dad, like, somebody wants to know how much Indian I am, and I remember being like little, and like I was supposed to know like my blood quantum or percentage of Indian blood or something, and he's like, and my dad, that's where I got my nice cuss tongue from, but he's like, well, of course, if you're, just tell him, he said, no, you're Indian, Jackie, or you're not Indian, which is it? I'm Indian, Dad. He's like, all right then, like enough said. So I mean, I felt like I've always had parents, not, always felt like I knew who I was as an Indian girl, as a Native woman, when I got older, and, and I married a Blackfoot.
Oh my.
And so much of much of the ceremonies that I have been involved with, are really where we've gone up to his families in Southern Alberta. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's weird. I can't hear the sound, but anyway, what I was going to go back to was, when you were talking about ICWA and what you were doing in the past and some of the things that have happened. And, Shannon was talking about Spirit Lake, and I know that things have changed drastically there. And as far as their community goes and their financial situation and everything, has that changed? Also, the Indian children's issues that's been going on out there.
Are you asking Shannon or me?
Well, I guess both of you, because I've been there, and I have a hard time. I didn't grow up there, of course. I haven't been there. I wasn't there back in the day, but I've been there, within the last 10 or 15 years. So I know that things are not like a regular res situation in that area.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think they are a regular res. My res is not far from Spirit Lake. And it's interesting because we are Chippewas, but it's also like the plains. So we've got, the plains Ojibwe and the Métis. So, and because we are so far in the plains, a lot of our ceremonies were that of the plains people, right? And so we relate a lot to the other North Dakota, Lakota people, in a sense. But I do feel that Spirit Lake is a hop, skip, and jump from my tribe. And I will say that, it depends. I mean, it depends on the relationships, I think, between some of the counties, if you're a state supervised county administered system, and the tribes, or the state in the tribes. Who's in those positions? What kind of administration are you looking at? In order, are there people who are knowledgeable with our tribes, who can help enforce and respond to the inquiries coming in? Because I have done national consulting, and I've been in tribes all over the country coming in, and there are some tribes, where they've hired the gal from the gas station to come in and do their ICWA work, and given she's from that area and knowledgeable about her people, she had a learning curve as far as how she was going to be responding and holding up and standing up to some of these officials in the courts. So it all depends on that, Roy, is my feeling, is like, who are in these positions? What are the resources they have? Are they supported, by their councils? So, and then again, who's in these state systems or these county systems? How knowledgeable are they? Do they have the tools and the accountability, and are they being held compliant? And that ebbs and flows, I think.
Well, I think what my question was that the financial situation has obviously changed in that area. Has that changed the situation as far as children being removed, or,
are you talking about per cap Indians?
What's that? What?
I don't know that gaming or any kind of revenue. I mean, how are we defining neglect? Here's the thing too, Roy, that I think is really important for a lot of folks, if they're not familiar with child protection. You have your definitions that are written for egregious cases, like egregious. And then you have cases that are written, or language, statutory language that's written for more neglect. And so what happens, and what we see across the country, is the majority of the cases happening out there are neglect. I think it was up to like 78% in Minnesota, but we were also seeing at that same average. So much of what was happening out there falls under neglect. But when you have a worker who is not trained, who is not knowledgeable, who doesn't know about tribes or Indian country or practices, who is not using any kind of guidelines, and is making decisions, out of her own opinions or experiences or perspective, they are bringing cases in that don't necessarily, or they're finding good cause to deviate into egregious harm and removing. And I know I'm talking social work, child protection codes, but I guess the point in bringing that up is what we see a lot is neglect. But what we have is statutes that respond like it's egregious. And so we are continuing to separate children from their parents. And I will say that if it's somebody who has money or no money, if it's somebody who, like, that to me isn't necessarily a factor. It can be, but I think what's more of a factor that needs reparations is how we were parented, what we were taught, how that's been passed down, and even some of the effects of the boarding schools that they've had, that those abuses have had on how that parenting has been translated into to where we are today. So it's both.
So I guess to put it in easy to understand terms for a guy like me, I didn't go to college like you guys, so I'm gonna try and put it into my words.
He always uses that as an excuse, and I think he's smarter than most people.
But thank you, sis. I appreciate it.
I'm never saying that.
What I'm saying is you just in a very eloquent way, you just said that, you know, the system looks at neglect, which may not be necessarily a means or a reason to remove a child from a family and to adopt that child out into the world away from their home, their tribe, their family. They're looking at it as a situation where in the maybe in the general public or the white world or whatever, they might not look at that issue as being egregious, but in the Indian world, they do look at it as egregious. I guess my question is that, are they now, is the government, state, local, whatever, federal government looking at these issues differently because of the financial situation, because of the way things have changed, like say in that area?
I think one really good part about having revenue, whether it's gaming revenue or whether it's, you know, any kind of revenue coming in from a tribe, is that they then have more of the authority to determine how they're going to work with their own families. They're not so dependent on the state system coming onto the reservation. And of course, you know, we're talking Public Law 280 and all of that I don't want to get into, but it does. I have recognized that when there is revenue, they then have the resources to do what they feel they need to do for their families, as opposed to depending on these funding streams that come in from the government, whether it's federal or state. Because once they begin doing that, and they are obligated under those funds to report in certain ways, you know, to be compliant with the way those funding streams are designed, and those usually aren't written by Indigenous people. So, but I don't think money makes somebody not abuse, right? So if you've been raised by somebody who maybe was removed and beat in boarding schools, and you know, and their grandma was like, and then some of that attachment and inability to parent was passed on. I mean, there are those issues too, but I, you know, really feel that if we can get more tribes the resources so they can determine, you know, how they are going to work with their families, all the better.
Yeah, because as long as the state or local government is interfering with the Indian family, there will always be that institutional racism that still needs so much attention, because the statistics all around Indian country are that white kids and Indian kids are being removed from their home for neglect in a pretty comparable rate. But the kids that are being removed and put in placement are the Indian kids. The white kids are getting to go back home. So that there are different times where the state is interfering in the process of evaluating an Indian family. And because of how state looks at Indians, or whatever bias that is there, often it is seen through the way the kids are treated and taken away from their family.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that in some of the work that I'm currently doing is, you know, with the Capacity Building Center for Tribes, you know, that's really the whole idea is, you know, how can we go out there and support Indian country to help the child welfare systems have the capacity to serve the children the way that they deem necessary, you know, so they can have it be a part of their cultural values, the part of their belief systems. So that's exciting because I feel like, you know, being able to help tribes do what they determine is best for their children, as opposed to what I did for 10 years at the state is, you know, trying to get the state to comply. That was difficult. You know, that was really difficult to get the state to recognize everything from who we are as Indigenous people, not recognizing our inherent rights, you know, thinking we were just another, you know, population or person of color, and not really understanding why we needed these special privileges. I mean, that's really where I started. And boy, if that isn't something that will, you know, poke at me, is when I hear somebody, you know, think that we have these special rights, you know, as opposed to inherent rights. So there was a lot of work, you know, working in state government, trying to, and there was a lot of good intention, but.
So can you tell us a little bit about is there feedback with my audio?
Well, it's
all right?
you have to just give it a quick second after Jackie gets done talking. It's just her microphone, and just let her finish for a second, and then you'll get clear.
Okay. If you want to put up my share screen, it's the organization
there you go.
that Jackie is talking about. And I don't know if there's any particular place you want to up here, but.
No, but I think this is, I mean, no particular place, but, you know, you can even, so what this is, and what I love about this organization is it's many Indigenous people coming together and recognizing, you know, and really child welfare experts. So if you scroll to the top too, there are, and then you look at the tab, you know, there's different resources out here. And this is, so I work for the University of Southern Maine, who is a organizational consultant to the Capacity Building Center for Tribes. And what we do is basically what you're seeing is we put all of these, we create these products and then we make them available to Indian country, to tribal child welfare programs. This is a page called Tools for Tribes, from Tribes. And what's nice is that tribes don't have to reinvent the wheel on some of these, you know, when you're looking at job descriptions or, you know, tribal state agreements, when you're looking at, you know, how do you come together with state folks, compliance tools, case plans. So this is such a great resource for tribes to be able to go in and think, okay, I really need this. How does the Choctaw do it? Or, you know, if they're Ojibwe, for them to be able to try to find a tribe that, because again, I think what people also don't always know is that we have these different ways of governing ourselves, right? Tribes, their codes.
Oh my gosh, wait, we don't all live in teepees?
I mean, right?
You don't want to send a Southern boy up north either, right?
I mean, so you, and I don't think, you know, you have some where it's just a couple hundred, and then you've got like, you know, the Cherokee Nation, it's huge. And so I think that there is so much room in between, and we really want to make sure that, you know, we have that in between, you know, that we recognize. My husband's smudging. Can you see all this?
Yeah.
I thought I saw something.
I'm smudging you guys all too. There you go. There you go. I mean, it is a beautiful thing. It's just like, where are you guys going? But yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of information. I know folks who haven't worked in the field, you know, when they say, hey, Jackie, what do you do? I just don't even know how to answer because I know it's complex and I don't want to bore I was going to swear. I don't know what. I don't want to bore people, but I recognize that, you know, there's a lot of different branches and arms to the work that I get to do, but I love it. I mean, I feel like it's such a privilege to be able to do this and work with the best folks at the university.
Yeah, and you own it and you know it. And it's so great to see someone like you to be able to spend time with you and the people that you know and listen to you all speak with one another. I had the wonderful opportunity. Didn't we hang out in Alaska or something? Yeah, that was Alaska at
the NICWA conference was there.
And just to listen to everyone talk about their work, because all the women there were so passionate and knew so much about how the inner workings of local and state and tribal governance work together for the benefit of children, and how it didn't work together.
Yeah.
All right, so this is all the boring shit. Let's hear something good, Jackie. Tell me a good story. Tell me a story about a success story.
What's a good success story?
Where you did something and it made life better for.
And remember, I have all these pictures too.
Well, and partly because I think that, so I walk with the story that I do growing up and some of the experiences and tragedies and traumas. But once you get older, you start to reflect, and some of the ways that I used to behave was through anger, right? So I would get pissed and I'd push people away, so if somebody said something or did something, that was my immediate response to them was like, and I had a sharp tongue. And then I realized as I got older, I was pushing people away with that. And so it just started to get to a point where how do I begin to address, I don't want to walk around with this anger. I don't want to push people away. And really that's where my ceremonies came in. And again, I don't typically talk about where I come from what I do in my ceremonies. It's very sacred. It's very private. But it's a part of my story. And so, my husband and I have been sun dancing for probably 13, 14 years, maybe longer. I don't know. And it's been a huge part of my life that has allowed me every year to go in and really reflect and talk to my ancestors and make those offerings for all of the families that I work with, that, a part of my community. So that was life-changing for me, to start that. And it was really my grandma Rosie and again, Southern Alberta.
That's funny.
That got me started.
That's my grandmother's name, Rosie.
Yeah, well, Rosie Day Rider, and the most beautiful woman ever. And so that's why I began dancing, and it started to change my life. I mean, I felt like, okay, I can do this. I felt stronger when things would get difficult on the outside, as they did working in the field that I was in. I would just have to pause and reflect, and remember what I was doing there, as we're praying in those 4 days, sun up to sundown, dancing. And again, I usually don't talk about it. People at work thought I'd go on vacation and I'd come back with a tan. They didn't realize that I was, fasting for 4 days, and they'd say, "Oh boy,
where's your tan?"
I just make shit up. Oh yeah, I was at a beach somewhere in Florida, because it was really none of their business, and it's so sacred to me that I felt like, this they wouldn't understand. And that and if I did share with them, I wouldn't want it to be received and take away from it. It's anytime we go into ceremony, we don't come out and we talk about it. This is our own personal quest in life, and this is what feeds our spirits. So that's really where things began to change for me. And again, I don't even know how many years, but and then also trying to become more active. I was running for a long time. I was doing a lot of just small 5Ks, 10Ks. But what is really amazing is we started about 7 or 8 years ago in Minnesota. It's called Kwe Strong. That's the Ojibwe word for woman. So Woman Strong. And it's a triathlon that's open to all Indigenous women. And it's every August in Minnesota. And this was just such a beautiful time for all of these Indigenous women to come together. And it wasn't about our time, it was really, because we would run around what was formerly known as Lake Calhoun, that was changed to the Bidet Makaska. And so we would run around that lake, and you'd have women who would have their babies on their backs, you know, and then we would, instead of swimming, we would canoe, which was beautiful. I mean, to see all those women out there singing songs and canoeing and biking. So we would bike, canoe, and run. And that's where I really started to feel like I was getting a lot of relief from exercise. And then, you know, I got older and became a grandma and had a torn meniscus and it got hurt.
Well, got bad backs and everything else.
But I mean, it truly was the most, I mean, I still do it. In fact, I'm starting to move more into this MC role. The ladies that run the Quay Strong, they're like, so Jackie, would you mind doing the MCing this year? And I'm like, because you can't see my ass running around that lake anymore, can you? Sure, I'll MC. So you know you're getting older when you're
You get to sit there. Hey, all you ladies, gather around, get on over here to the starting line.
Right? That's what I get to do now. So I'm not doing it necessarily, but it's a good time. It's definitely a good time. And then I became a grandma. So that's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
The best thing in the world. Best thing in the world.
So that was cool, and thank you for sharing. I know that those things, especially Sundance Commitment, is very personal and private to all of us. Thanks for sharing that, and thank you to you and your husband for committing to do that for us, because I understand, and everybody else out there should understand that Jackie and her husband. What's your husband's name?
Kirk Crowshoe.
Kurt.
Kirk. Yep.
Oh, Kirk. So big thanks to Kirk, because he's doing it for everybody else out there. He's committed a big part of his life and sacrificed to go out and ceremony and dance for all of us. So I want to thank you and appreciate what you and your husband do. That's awesome.
Yeah. And my son just finished his 4th year, so I'm extremely proud of our son.
Nice.
Wait, I'm gonna have to bring up some pictures or something while y'all are talking.
Yeah. So thank you again for your family's commitment. That we appreciate that. That's good thing. So still a story. I want to hear a story about somebody's success story in the work that you do, because what I find is that we dig into this thing and we start talking about all the shit that happens to Indian people and the horrible things and the things that have pissed us off for all these years. But what is it that Indian people have been doing for Indian people that has actually brought something good that's happened? And what does that story look and sound like? And who may that person be, so that we can all feel a little bit better about the things that you guys are doing,
I appreciate that. And I tell you, I've been doing meditation now too. And I have felt that truly, part of meditation is the gratitude and and it's something that I think it's a part of our Indigenous values and beliefs, is that gratitude, is that recognition. And, and there's a tremendous amount. I think just even my son's, he's 22. So, when I watched him out there completing his 4th year and I'll get choked up, but, watching him do his giveaway was the most beautiful gift as a parent, and knowing that he can take this time, and it's a way of life now for us. It's we do it every year, but definitely recognizing that these young Native men are out there and having challenges in their life, as is our Indigenous sisters, right? But to be able to find these ways and to be able to turn back to these ways that are our ways, to me, are our success stories. And I always welcome, many of our friends and family to travel with us to Southern Alberta. But I also want to give a huge shout out to my husband. We've been together for 24 years, maybe longer. And, he was adopted with his twin. And, it was, she never survived. She passed away many years ago, but it was a horrible adoption into a white home and lots of abuse. And
Roy, can you share the screen, please, Roy?
Oh,
And I recognize, I recognize that there he is. That's when we looked young.
Oh, look at that.
That's our young picture.
Yeah, that's what the shagging and snagging days right there.
Right? Well, and we met actually at the Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center that long ago, and I'm a board member today on that organization where we met. But truly, his story and having been adopted out, and as we grow older, we some of our past catches up a bit, and the impact that it had on our marriage, and having to take time outs. But the work that he's done to me is a success story, Roy. The ceremonies he goes to and the lodges and the relationships he has and the meetings he goes to, is just, I'm extremely proud. And that's a huge success story because it means everything to our marriage. And same with, the work that I have to do individually, keeping my body strong, getting in, into our ceremonies. All of that is extremely important to us because our past can catch up with us quickly, and it can take over, and it can destroy us. So
yeah,
oh, that's perfect. That's what I wanted to hear, because when you talk about ceremony and how it's brought him back from a situation, your husband, and on top of all the other people that you're helping out there. But for me, it was the same thing, being danced back or being ceremonied back into a productive life, because I see that today I was watching the news, and I saw all these young men on the front steps of their city halls strapped down with weapons and armor and all of this stuff. Yeah, all these young men, and I was thinking to myself, what is making these young men feel like they've got to do that, and I thought something that was taught to me a long time ago is about rite of passage. Our culture today, in American white culture, doesn't have a rite of passage for these young men. And a lot of our young Indian men that were taken out of their families, like myself, my father was removed from his mother, my grandmother, Rosie. And so he was removed from her. And so they lost that ability to have a rite of passage. And I've noticed that a lot of Indian men my age, and then these young men that are doing ceremony now and sun dancing and doing these things, they're being danced back into the culture, and they have a rite of passage, and it gives them so much more confidence in who they are. And that rite of passage has been has been given back to them. And I think that is so important, especially to help to solve some of the, Indian country has a lot of issues, and, and there's a lot of us men, I'm just going to say it because my elder taught me this. A lot of us men are the problem. We have more. I mean, I'm not saying that women don't have problems too, but for some reason us men have a lot of them. And I think it comes from a lot of that, which is the rite of passage. And then when that is given back to us, when we are able to honor that and to go back and dance and get that back, and that's when we become members of our society and are able to pass it back down to our children. And I think it's beautiful that your son is being, danced into that and being able to ceremony, and his father's being able to bring him in. That's awesome.
And he has a warrior spirit. He's definitely always been an experiential learner. And as you can see, I think I might have shared some pictures of him and I in Standing Rock, and that's where he really came alive, recognizing like, wow, my spirit is like really strong. It's a strong, there's our Quay strong. There's some of our Indigenous women with that picture. That was,
oh yeah, I've got to find the,
do you have the Standing Rock one?
There's a Standing Rock one in there. I think we're standing next to the Piikani flag. My husband's reserve in Canada. So he has a warrior spirit, and he knows that. And when he was in Standing Rock and he helped volunteer and was working security, and I'm like, okay, son, let's go. We've been here 8 days. He's like, no, Mom, I'm staying here. I'm leaving Standing Rock, leaving my son there, because he felt like he finally found his voice, his spirit, like you're talking about, Roy. Like he knew that this was, this was radiating with him deeply, what he could do for his people. And that's what was taken away, is just that ability to be those warriors and those protectors, so, and he's still, there are days that he recognizes, he's got those challenges like you were describing, but I always want to get him back into that lodge, get him back into those ceremonies, and recognize. And because I think sometimes in this world, we lead with our egos. We start to get anxious. I started to get anxious coming on here thinking, gee, Jackie, why did you do this? You shouldn't have committed to this tonight. And, you're adding this on to other things. And then I thought, wait, stop, bring your spirit into this, because our egos are afraid. Our egos are judging ourselves. Our egos aren't thinking we're good enough, and we gotta figure out how to push that aside and bring our spirits into our work so we can connect as human beings, so we can love and care for one another and pray for one another. Like, to me, that's what it's all about, is how do we call our spirits? And that's why we have our names. My spirit name is Gakadusaki. And so every time I hear that Gakadusaki, it's like my spirit perks up and wants to say, like, okay, what? So if I need that little push, I say, Gakadusaki, let's go, let's get this done. And, we have such beautiful ways as an Indigenous people. Like, my gosh, we've got just this backpack full of ceremonies and tools and gatherings and skills and beliefs and traditions. And like, we are so, I just about said the F word.
Oh, say it.
It's okay.
Like, no, seriously, like, we are, I know my white girl friends are a little envious of me because we have right now, when things are tough, who's texting who to find out, like, okay, so, what kind of tea? Can I get that in the grocery store? It's not the sage you put on your turkey, is it? But
I remember.
They're spiritually hungry, like, people are spiritually hungry. And guess what? We have this plethora and, all of these tribes and traditions and beliefs. Like, I get so excited about that. Like, we gotta celebrate that.
Yeah, when I was a young man, younger, I went back home and we went to powwow and it was like my first experience with it. I was removed. I grew up in white culture. I was adopted out of my family also, and not in the same way. I wasn't adopted out of the tribe, but it was the same situation. 15-year-old mom and Indian father in prison and all that. So when I finally did get to go home and start to see the culture, and I grew up in South Central Los Angeles, so in Inglewood, in the ghetto, and not South Central, but close enough.
Yeah,
we call it the Wood. But so when I went back and I was back in Louisiana at the powwow, and then afterwards, all the young people got together for my first experience with the 49. And I was like,
is that considered a ceremony, or?
It was for me.
Really?
First introduction to ceremony.
So, but it's a connection, right?
But it warmed me up, and it was a connection. It was something different, and there was a different kind of connection there with the people, and it was just it felt warm. It felt good. It felt like home.
Yes, your spirit. It was alive.
Your spirit wakes up, and we have all these things, like you said. It's not just the ceremonies and the dances but it's our culture itself. It's the 49. It's the fun. It's the teasing of our cousins. It's our grandmother's cooking. It's all of those things that have been passed down that we've got that give us our culture and make us feel that warmth and that real good. It just feels good. I just it's a good way. And when I hear people like you and your family coming together and ceremony and making it part of your family and passing it on to your children, it just warms me up, and to know that our cultures are still alive and our people are still alive, and that thing is still being passed on and making people feel good and making people feel like home. So it is so important to bring these children back into that who have been removed from it, because
or don't take them from it in the first place.
And if not, they don't ever get to fill that hole up. And as Indigenous kids and as Indigenous people, that there's nothing in my life that has ever filled that but ceremony, Indian people, Indian culture, my grandmother's cooking, all of those things that I'm telling you that you were talking about. That's the only thing that filled that hole for me. Of course I tried outside things, the physical world things to try and fill that hole, but nothing ever really did until I got back into the culture. And so the work that you guys are doing is so important. And this issue is so important because for those people out there that maybe you're one of those children that was removed from their family years and years ago. And maybe you just know that you were, and you never knew what your culture was. Go back. Those people are doing ceremony for you. Those people are praying for you. Those people are trying to dance you back into your culture. It's there for you. It's yours. And it will, if you're an Indigenous person, if you have Indigenous blood, if you were in an Indigenous family at one time, or it's still there, and it's there for you. And they want to give it back to you. So what you guys are doing is awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah. You might, Roy, show the share screen.
Oh, okay.
Because I do want to show these beautiful pictures when whoops, let me get back.
I was like, you showed that one.
Yes.
Hold
all
on.
the beautiful ladies.
Oh, so that's my daughter and I. That was my daughter and I. We were competing. That was our swimming part of it. I was in pain. Yes, that's right.
Is that what that face is?
Yes, it was hard.
And then beautiful pictures at Standing Rock.
That's my son and I at Standing Rock. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And that's my son as I left him, so he could continue on to do security with them.
Wow. What was that like? How long were you there?
We were on it. We were there constantly, back and forth. We were there for quite a bit. I was just tugging at my earrings. I haven't had earrings on for like over a month, so I'm like, ooh, I can feel them. They're kind of heavy, but I had to put them on.
I took a shower.
But I had to put them on because I can put earrings on for something.
You're doing more close up. Who's your earring? Who does your earring?
Oh my gosh, her name Annie Morell.
Yeah.
She's Ojibwe.
Those are beautiful,
aren't they? Yeah. Nice. I showed her pictures of my ribbon skirts, and she did up a couple of pair for me. She did a fabulous job. Oh, wow. But I'm just like this. They're feeling funny because it's been a long time since I put earrings on, but it feels good. I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, was there any anything that you wanted us to show on screen, Jackie? I mean, we're gonna post on the bottom here any links or any websites that you want us to. But is there anything that you wanted to add to the show as far as that goes? Websites or anything?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think it's just. I think this is just such a beautiful opportunity for us to get together and. Just recognize we're not alone. We're not alone. And, that the more I became honest with my past and faced it and, was able to, acknowledge that, yes, I have been raped and that I no longer carried that, that belonged to him, not me, and then be a part of these movements out there and empowering each other as Indigenous women. Like, man, we are fucking strong when we do that. Like you might have had to bleep that out, but we need to do that. We need to do that. We need to get together and know that we're not alone in our stories. And same, Roy, with you Indigenous men. I think that women are a lot further along in being able to talk about our hurts and our traumas. And to be able to not only talk about our hurts and our traumas, but also recognize like what are the steps we are going to do, to nurture those wounds, and again, we talked about our ceremonies. I've recently been doing meditation, and I'm finding it to be, because I got this monkey mind. Anybody who knows me, and I'm going, and I need to slow that mind down. And so meditation and of course, exercising, but we've got a lot of work, that we need to do for our people, and we need a lot of us together to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I definitely, I admit it. I think you women have things down a little better than us. Us men, for some reason, we take that whatever our damage, and we express it in different ways, and I think it takes us a little longer to get back to good. And you guys understand how to get back to good a little quicker than we do, I think. So,
well, and we have a society, that's the hard part too, is that we have so many ways of acting out that we just, and this is, something I know that we were going to focus a little bit on the Indian Child Welfare Act, but truly, part of our healing, is recognizing the various ways we can act out these hurts, and I'm talking about smoking because I was a smoker. I have not smoked now for probably, gosh, it was at a sweat. So it's been about, I don't know, maybe a month or 2 months that I've stopped smoking. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. I would run marathons and then I'd smoke, but nonetheless, whatever, again, in the judgments that we put upon ourselves, we're always, that critical thinking we do is if only we can turn that down and be more gentle on ourselves and be able to find ways, because, we're gambling, we're smoking, we're drinking, sex, we don't talk about that. We don't talk about compulsive sexual behaviors. We don't talk about these things. And there's so much shame on top of them. My God, we have all of this sexual abuse in our history, and then we're so afraid, our spirits, we need to build some, I remember my husband one time at one of Don Coyas's conferences, had a workshop, and he wanted to talk to other men and lead men about compulsive sexual behavior and sexual violence. And my husband has told his story several times. He's been keynote speakers on that topic. And guess how many men showed up at his workshop? There were hundreds and hundreds at this conference. Guess how many Native men showed up for his workshop to talk about sexual abuse?
Oh, no. Two? Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, and they literally scurried around that room, and, and I'm thinking, so my prayers are often let us start to let go of our shame, because the shame and those secrets and those stories, they hold us down, and it gets to be so much, and it starts to come out in our bodies, so I want to be able to find ways to talk about our healings, to talk about, our stories, and to not feel that shame, for those that can do it on their own. I also am cognizant of who I share my story with, because I don't want to just stand up in front of a room. I choose where I want to share my story. But anyways, I love
appreciate
that.
you coming and sharing it with us a little today. We appreciate that, because it's not always easy. And, those of us who are on the red road, and we've looked at our demons, and 25 years ago, I quit smoking too myself. And, 26 years ago, I quit drinking, and so I've been working on all those things too. I ain't perfect by no means, that's for sure, but it has eased my spirit, that's for sure.
Yeah. And if people are smoking, it's like being gentle and not judging, and all of those things. We need to be gentle. We need to not judge. We need to let go of our shame. So that's kind of where I'm at today. Because I am so far from, there's so much that I still
but
have
being an
work.
example and not telling people, no, you shouldn't smoke, no, you shouldn't drink, no, you shouldn't, be doing this or that or the other. It's more about, being an example, and just, easing your own, because you're no good to anybody. But it's the whole oxygen mask type thing, right? Where, the plane's crashing and you're losing oxygen, but you don't put the mask on the kid first. You put it on yourself first, so that you can help others, kind of thing,
Yeah.
That's how I've always looked at it.
In Indian country, we know all the horribles. I mean, we have relatives, we know what the horribles look like.
Yeah.
So smoking, I quit smoking in law school. Don't ask me how the hell I did that.
I don't know how you did that either. He was pretty good at it.
Well, because
you were good at it. You
every
smoked
once in a
good.
while, but haven't in a long time. But
I mean, I still, if I'm at sweat and I'm standing out by the fire, I'll probably have one. I don't want there to be so much shame around some of what we do to cope? Like I just want us to self-reflect and have the ability to be gentle on ourselves and not judge one another and not judge ourselves. So
Yeah.
I like that. I want to hang around with you more. I need more people who
Well,
aren't
it's been a whole lot of fun. Shannon, do you have anything else that we need to add to the show today, or should we? We've been going on over an hour and 20 minutes.
This is great. I'm so grateful to be able to spend some time with you, Jackie. I wish we're closer and had more opportunities. And I hope we can have you on again, and maybe I'd like to join us too sometime, and your family.
Yeah.
Beautiful family, and I'm so grateful that you're there. And an example. Roy, we really need some music. We don't have any music.
I could sing. Do you want me to sing a song?
Do you want to sing a song?
I'm not kidding.
Like not karaoke.
I got the drum.
So part of what I've been able to do, and this is the best part of my life, is not only the songs we sing in ceremony, but here's one that has always stuck with me. And when I have worked out east with the Mohawks, right? So I was doing some work with the St. Regis Mohawk tribe and some of the ladies that I fell in love with. And that's the beauty of this work, is I get to travel and fall in love with people from all over. And they were some of the Akwesasne singers, right? And so they took me to one of their little rehearsals or practices. They were getting ready, I think, for the Native American Music Awards or something. And so I'm sitting there, just excited because there are such beautiful singers. I don't know if you've heard the Akwesasne singers, but one of the ladies then gave me permission and shared with me this lullaby song. And so now that my grandbaby has been here, that's one of the things that I have often sang to her. And, as women and as providers and life givers, it's just been that song that I have absolutely loved. And I could just do maybe one push-up of it. Yeah.
Need a beat?
Well, they usually do rattles, right? Mohawks, the Akwesasne. I think they do little drums too, but I don't need that. I can't even believe I offered this.
I can get my gourd down here real quick.
But if any of them ever come back and watch this, I want to, give a shout out, because of course I can't do justice to G Square and some of the beautiful Akwesasne singers. But again, why this one stuck, I don't know. But it's a lullaby.
You got Roy getting his rattle. He's excited. He wants to.
Yeah.
All right. I got the rattle.
So it's again, like it reminds me of my grandbaby. I could have sang like a thank you song but this is the one I think, just given the intimacy of our conversation when we talk about our healing, it just reminds me of like having that comfort of our moms, our families, our loved ones, and holding them close, rocking them. So this is how I was taught, and I'll just do one push-up. Hi-yo, hi-yo, ho, ho, eh, hi-yo. Yo, hi-yo, ho, ho, eh. Hi-yo, ho, eh. Yo, hi-yo, ho, eh. Yo, hi-yo, ho, how-we, now-we, nay. So, danye diesel, danye day. On a ye, oh, hey, after do, ye, now, with Jesus, hey, hey. Oh, we la, Gina, we on gonna go quake. There we go. Hey, y'all want to go to sleep, huh?
That's beautiful.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Jackie.
Yes, I love it.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Thank you so much. Mwah. I want to give a last shout out to the Association on American Indian Affairs, who's producing this show.
Yep.
Please subscribe. What else do they do?
Comment, comment, and subscribe.
Yes, we like haters, we like lovers, whatever. Say it in the comments below. Give us something good to work off of. And you can also find us at indian-affairs.org, and more information about Red Hoop Talks. Though he doesn't know it yet, our next guest for next week is Briho, who is going to be, who's a musician and also an educator. He's spending some time with from the Creek Nation. And that's all I've got. Jackie, you're beautiful. I'm so grateful to have you on.
All right, guys. Well, thank you, Jackie. Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you.
We're gonna call it a good one for today, and we'll see you guys all next week on our little show here, Red Hoop Talk.
All right,
guys.
Next
See
week.
ya.
Take care.
Bye. Oh, did she